Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of Another Pass, where we talk about movies and all the struggles that go into making them. If you like it, check out the whole podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Though I have to say, the whole soundtrack to this film, so good, so good.
Yeah,
this
is an epic soundtrack. Like, that's the best thing about this movie. There are good things about the movies, but the soundtrack is the best thing about this movie.
If anything, any takeaway here, it's yes, more of Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack. More Bobby Brown, more Jackie Wilson, more Run DMC. Yes, have it all. Have it all.
Yeah, and I love how much fun all of the songs that are using the Ghostbuster theme in it are. Like the Run DMC remix of the Ghostbusters theme, utilizing it for Bobby Brown stuff. Like all those spots, you can tell how big the theme song for Ghostbusters was in the zeitgeist and how like they wanted to use elements of it in their remixes.
I feel like the montages during the film was actually solid. Like it brought back like everything of the first film. You're like, yes, this is the feeling, this is it. And then it would cut to a scene and you're like, and now it's over. And now,
well, there were a bunch of spots that I kept being surprised were in this movie and not the first one. Like the montage of them like getting back as Ghostbusters, like the runner, for example, was one that I really liked, that like sequence. And I just assumed that like Ghostbusters 1's the good one, so it has that scene, and Ghostbusters 2's the bad one, so it didn't have that scene. And then I'm like, oh no, wait, that's actually in this movie.
That happened a lot. I found myself being like, oh my god, that's in 2 and not 1. And it's just the mind association of like, it must have been in the first one, because that was the movie, that was the Ghostbusters, not the real Ghostbusters, but the Ghostbusters.
And there are, like I said, like plenty of like good things throughout. Like the Scoleri brothers scene, the whole court scene in general, I think is really good, and honestly like competes with the sort of equivalent scene, which is like the hotel scene in the first one. I think this is a stronger work in general. I mean, like obviously, like they're at different points in their career, they're actually like capable Ghostbusters at this point. The only thing weird is that Winston's not part of that group. Since he was there at the start of the court scene. Like, where'd he go?
Yeah, you see him in the background. He's in the crowd. Right.
He talks to them.
And then I don't know. Well,
yeah, like why wouldn't he? There's weird moments where Winston just disappears. Like I understand like when Egon and Dan Aykroyd, because he's always just Dan Aykroyd to me, they're doing that little experiment with the photographs that they took of the painting, because you need someone to come in and save them from the fire. So like, understandable, right? But like I was just like, but what? I thought he was there. Like, where is he? Like, why isn't he helping? Like, he's a Ghostbuster. What is going on?
Look, he does the 9 to 5, and that's it. He's there for his
good for him
paycheck.
You know what? Good for him. That's a good work-life balance. That's right. You go home.
You go, Winston.
He's a hero.
No, I like the him not being there is because they're thematically trying to like be like, all right, this is resetting them as Ghostbusters and setting it to the same way that we had in the previous movie. And I think that's a bummer. Like Winston, I mean, especially for those of us who were fans of the cartoon, where Winston is, you know, just one of the 4 members. Like there's no pretense that he's like a lesser member in their capacity. Like he should have just been there because like, no, like he's part of the team now. And like, he's not a lesser part of the team. Like, yes, he was not on site when they were when they were digging into First Avenue. Like, so he's technically not on trial. That part is fair. He shouldn't be sitting at the table, but he should be able to grab his proton pack and assist in fighting the ghosts. And the Scoleri brothers are a great idea. Like, people killed by the electric chair by the judge. Fucking awesome. I love that.
Oh, they're so good. And the whole Louis Tully during all of those scenes where Vinkman is just feeding him everything that he's saying during there and trying to bumble his way through it. It's so good. It's so good. That is probably my almost my favorite.
It's a real strong sequence. Like all of it is just really good.
I also think it's within the scene, it gives you a really good demonstration of how the goo is going to work, right? Because like that's when they really see the activity of this thing that they found, and like all of a sudden they're like, oh, it is reacting right now, like, and they're like, no, you should stop, and like we as the audience are like, oh my god, he should stop, but he's still going and saying more ridiculous things. And so it's got this really like wonderful build, plus it's a perfect way of explaining like what this goo is, or at least like what it reacts to, right? And so then it's a nice tie into Egon's experiments from the beginning,
which is a great theme throughout there.
And then the experiments later on, like everything with them shouting at it and the music, like I think that the toaster sequence, I think, is actually really good. I think that we are missing a scene between that sequence and then the Statue of Liberty at the end. And it's apparently a sequence that got cut. At some point, there was a scene where they show that they can control a thing that they ooze. But I do like the through line of them figuring out how this ooze works. And I like and I keep calling it the ooze, I like the slime in this movie. Just in general, because I think like that actually, I mean, one, we set up the ectoplasmic goo stuff in the first movie and like Slimer and all that stuff, but also just like a blob like feels like an appropriate like supernatural menace in movies. Like it feels like a thing that the Ghostbusters should deal with. Like in the first movie, they dealt with like some random fucking god. In this case, they're dealing with like this amorphous like evil from beyond.
River of ooze too. Like it's a river of ooze.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's. Honestly, this should be called Ghostbuster River of Ooze.
Ghostbusters 2, The Secret of the Ooze.
Tying in all the universes. Well, all of the...
this is as good a spot as any to mention this.
It was in the sewer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I do actually compare this to Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze a lot of times, because that I felt had the same basic issues that this movie does, which is that there was a popular cartoon that influenced the perception of a franchise that wasn't really meant for kids, but you could see why it would appeal to kids, that then caused the sequel to be heavily influenced by said animated series as much as it was by the original movie, and is thus like a lesser product as a result. Like I think this and Turtles 2 are in the same category of like, yeah, it's fine. It could be a lot worse. Like we know it could be a lot worse. We know both could be a lot worse. But it's fine. But it definitely feels like it's like toned down for kids, and thus you kind of lose the thing that you really liked about it.
Yeah, I always wonder how much that influence had on how they approached it. Was there a constant struggle of like, who is the audience that we want to appeal to? We want to have it appeal to, you know, the adults, but also now we have this audience of kids who really love Ghostbusters. How do you do that all at once at one movie when I'm sure you're getting pressure from whoever is overhead at the studio saying, look, this is our audience, this is who we have to appeal to.
Yeah Well, and that apparently was a big issue for this movie, because they had way more Slimer written into the movie than they were like, no, we got to cut it all. And then they were like, okay, how about a little bit of Slimer? And they like tried to find the right balance there.
As a bus driver, of course, you know.
Yeah, and clearly what happened was that Bill Murray was in a slightly different movie, basically, because nothing he says is appropriate for children, but all the other Ghostbusters actually walk the line of being fairly appropriate for children.
Well, Winston's line, which is probably one of my favorites in the film, when they're testing out the ooze and slime and it's like, I think Bill Murray says of basically alluding to, did they have sex with the slime?
Right.
And Winston is like, it's always the quiet ones. No, but I guess that would go over the kids' heads. But
I also feel like that's still Bill Murray being appropriate, and just Winston being like, okay, smoothing that out with something else.
Yeah, I can see that all being ad-libs.
But it made for gold. Even, you know what, that setup, I'll take it. So I mean, the comedic parts in it really. Can we talk about Peter MacNicol for a second? I mean,
sure. Yeah, let's talk about whatever was going on with Peter MacNicol there.
He's just like, he's my favorite part of this film. Like, I don't know why. It's just everything that he says and does is just so good. It's just, the baby, he comes in and is he white? Oh, but I would. He's so good. He is so good.
I love that like his accent is totally indiscernible, and they ask him where are you from, and he's like the Upper West Side.
Right.
And it's just like, what?
And that was apparently a choice that he made because he wanted to be like, he was like, this character could be from anywhere, could be whatever. And so he had this whole idea that his character was specifically Carpathian as a way of connecting him to the Vigo stuff, which, okay. I mean, that part is creative, a creative choice.
I mean, that's a choice.
Yeah, that part's
that
good.
Is a choice.
He
I love
apparently
it.
based his accent on a Czech accent, but, you know, it just sounds like European.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's so good.
Yeah, it's weird. Because he's effectively the equivalent role of Louis Tully in this movie. Like, in that this movie, like, follows fairly beat for beat what happens in the first one. So, like, he's the annoying guy who's bothering Dana. And then gets possessed by a ghost.
Possessed. There you go.
Yeah.
Man, they really did go just right down the line.
Yeah. It even has a kaiju at the end. They just flip who has the kaiju.
She is a symbol of purity and love, though. So it was great.
Oh, I don't mind the use of the Statue of Liberty. In fact, I rather like it as a juxtaposition to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, who, you know, looking at it from like while there's a little bit of like rah independent business, a little too much in the first movie, like all government regulation is bad kind of stuff. I do enjoy that the ultimate confrontation is a symbol of crass commercialism. Like, it's a mascot for a brand. And I think that's really cool. And like, that's like one of those things we didn't talk about last time when we talked about Ghostbusters, but is really great about just like that. Like, that's so cool. And like flipping it with the Statue of Liberty, where it is a more philanthropic, it is more of a like a public goods kind of thing that is also like we said, like it's a symbol of, I mean, it's literally a symbol of liberty. It's a symbol of like all the things that we hold dear. Like, that's a good idea.
By the end of the film, I mean, she smashes it, it's there, but then you see it just like lying on the ground. How did the Statue of Liberty just suddenly fall over and it's just chilling there?
Well, I guess because there's no more ooze, right? So like, there's nothing to.
So how did they get it back there? What did they do?
They probably
after?
still had more.
Honestly, the Ghostbusters are going to get sued again. That's basically what's going to happen, because the city's going to make them pay for putting it back up.
Well, they show that it is at the back up at the very end. So like, I'm guessing they had more of the ooze and they like got it up, which makes me wonder if this ooze is like self-replicating and it's like positive. Is that like the new designer drug for New York City after that? Like, like slime yourself and you'll just feel great, baby. Just love everyone.
Or angry. I mean, I don't know. It amplifies your own.
So
feelings.
it's weed and
so
cocaine.
Like,
It's both.
This is how, you know, the Ghostbusters then made their fortune. They started just, you know, selling the slime to.
Let's not get too ahead of ourselves because like I have some thoughts
the
about
river
that.
of ooze. Oh my gosh.
Remember, if you like that clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.